Hey there, you're tuning in to LowKey by Oaky, our easygoing sessions for hotel professionals where we chat about industry trends, issues, and solutions.
Yes, off we go. Hi there, welcome to our podcast. I'm Marieke, Head of Marketing at Oaky, and I will be hosting this session with a very exciting topic that's very close to my heart because we're going to talk about branding. We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts, what the difference is between a weak brand and a strong brand, quick wins, why it's important to build a strong brand, and maybe some recommendations from our side. Before I introduce today's guest, I would like to mention that this podcast is divided into 3 sections divided by a hotel bell. So if you hear that, we just need to continue to the next chapter of the podcast. But let's continue to the good part. Today we have a very special guest here in front of me, a woman with a strong background working in marketing at renowned companies in various industries, from hotel tech to brand experience agencies, which makes her a true marketing leader. Her exceptional skills and keen understanding on consumer and business needs really sets her apart, and she has led many successful campaigns. So we're really, really proud to have you here on the podcast. So Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you here too. To make sure we approach this topic also from the hotel side, we also interviewed another person, Dado. Sorry if I pronounce your last name incorrect. It's Ljumanovic. It's a group director in digital media and CRM at the Sircle Collection. Another marketing leader in the industry, which will give some insights from his point of view. I'm actually faster than the hotel bell, but we are going to move to the main part of this podcast, which is branding. So Hannah, working at various companies in various industries, how important is branding for you?
Oh, goodness me. Branding is super important. I think what I'm really pleased about is the shift that we've seen in the last couple of years from the idea that branding for a marketer is making everything look pretty. And the idea that we have nice decks and we have nice roll-up banners and we have good-looking exhibition booths, to people really understanding that brand is what we connect to. So it's the foundation of how experiences work. Because whether or not we're talking B2B or whether or not we're talking B2C, the brand is where we have the emotional level of connection, right? So when we think about hotels and we think about tech, or to be frank, any industry, we think a lot about the rational marketing, right? And that's kind of the how they buy, the when they buy. That's when we start talking about channels. That's when we start talking about price point. That's when we start thinking about convenience and availability. But ultimately, the brand, particularly from a hotel perspective, is where I, as the consumer, think, okay, I connect with this hotel. They style in the way that I style. They care about the things that I care about. They visualize it in a way that makes sense to me. So the shift that we've seen in the last couple of years from really understanding that brand is the foundation of how people see our business is really exciting. So I think the question was, how important is brand? Yeah. So hopefully I've covered that, but super important, the highest level.
The highest level, yeah. And also working at those companies, were you ever limited because the brand was not on point, or it was just not aligned with the company itself?
Yeah, I think where you see that most commonly is where the brand and the company have developed, but the brand from a positioning perspective hasn't kept up, right? So ultimately, brand should be built in the foundations and the roots of the company. It's part of who you are. So at Duetto, for example, one of our brand values is come as you are. And you can't rewrite that. That's a fundamental piece of how we show up to work and how we approach our customers and how we approach business. But what will happen over time is the world will move on, the industry will move on, the company will move on. And then where you end up being limited is where the business that you've become is no longer reflected in the brand. And so I think that's where limitations come into play. And it's why we should continue to invigorate and refresh a brand so that it moves at the same pace as a company, particularly in tech, right? we move so fast as companies, and things are developing so quickly, and trends are changing how we approach things, that keeping up with brand means that we have less of those limitations.
Yeah, that's a very nice bridge to the brand relaunch you did at Duetto. How was that?
It was so exciting and challenging, right? I mean, you've been there, you know how these things go. But the fundamental part of the brand refresh at Duetto came down to the fact that who we knew we were as a business, how we connected internally, how our customers saw us, especially when they spend time with the Duetto people, which is a massive piece of kind of who we are, how we deliver our customer service. That wasn't translating externally. So if you came across us as a new customer or a new partner or somebody who wasn't aware of us, you couldn't look at us or interact with us and understand who we are as a business. And that gap had got bigger, and that gap was not allowing us to show up kind of as authentic Duetto. So it was this really exciting project where we got to dig into, how do our customers feel about us? How do our employees feel about us? What's important to our founders? And then how do we kind of thread all this together to come out as the new Duetto? And the really good thing about it is coming out as the new Duetto was coming out colourful. And it really just felt like it reflected who we are when we show up to work every day, and kind of the creativity and the passion behind the business. So it's just been a huge amount of fun.
Yeah, really well done on the rebrand, and great story. And that made me think, actually, I recently had a chat with somebody at the Radisson Hotel Group, and I've been to their revenue days, and like the culture was so amazing. Like it was so exciting, and everybody was fun and young. And when you look at the Instagram of the Radisson hotels, and it doesn't really reflect it. I don't say it's bad, but I say it's very nice that you decided to come closer to the internal brand that you had or that you felt, to also showcase that to the rest of the world.
Right. I mean, if we go back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, the brand is the consumer or the buyer's emotional connection, right? So ultimately, they will buy from any software on a number of reasons. So we have revenue growth, primarily, operational efficiency, integrations and deployment, project management, all of the things that come into it. But the brand is such a piece of that underpins it, kind of the how they feel about us, and not only why they buy the first place, but why they continue to stay with us, right? And it's the same for hotels. You know, when we talk about kind of the returning guest and how that works, that's really where you see brand come in to its own. I mean, even this morning before I came to see you, I was like, I have to go and get coffee from Boca because that is my brand. There can be a million Starbucks in the region, but I will walk the extra 10 minutes because I remember the brand affinity and kind of how that works. So I think it's really important for customer retention as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then I actually want to listen to a segment of Dado, because I asked this question to Dado as well. Like, why is brand important to you? And this is what he said. Maybe I can hold the phone a bit closer to the microphone so you actually hear it as well.
Well, for me, it's super important, as it really impacts the seamless experience and create trust actually between our guests and hotel. And without it, we are just same like all the other hotels represented, for example, on online travel agents. So for us, it's really the key to differentiate ourselves and really to attract those really audiences that we want to have in our hotels.
Yeah, and to repeat myself a little, he is like all into CRM, digital brand experience, etc. So for him, that's interesting. For him, it's really like brand is so important to create that trust. And of course, later in the conversation, he also talked about direct bookings and loyal guests, but also building that trust was very important, especially online.
Yeah, I love that. I think, when we think about kind of brand affinity for hotels, whether or not we're talking about a boutique or an independent or a chain, trust is such a massive part of what I expect when I show up. So when I book online, when I arrive at the property, through my in-stay experiences, through my loyalty program, through my rebooking, there's this trust in how it's going to be delivered, how they're going to speak to me, what the language is going to be, how they're going to use my data, because I identify with the brand, right? If we take a brand like Eden, for example, there's such a beautiful simplicity in the way that they talk to their guests, both online and then in person, but it's consistent. So we have this brand trust all the way through the experience when you stay with them. And so I think the idea that brand loyalty builds trust is a huge piece of what we're focusing on. And then I love that he mentions differentiation, right? Because that's all we're trying to do with brand.
Yeah.
We're trying to say the things that we know make us different are reflected in our external brand, and therefore you also feel those things that make us different. That's really the journey we're trying to connect. So I think that's great.
Yeah, that's great. And that brings me up to another thing that I wanted to cover in this podcast is like, what differentiates a good brand, a strong brand from a weak brand, in your opinion?
Oh, what a question. So we're going a little off topic from hotels here, but great brands for me have simplicity. I really think that we sometimes try and overcomplicate brand. What we should be doing is look at 2 or 3 things where we're trying to say, this is what I want our audiences to connect to. This is what I want them to, at Google, we called it think, feel, do. Very simple, only ever 3 things, right? What do we want them to think? What do we want them to feel? And then what do we want them to do? At every brand touch point that they have, at every interaction, I mean, the beautiful thing about Google is it doesn't matter how their brand comes together. When you see it, you inherently know you're looking at Google, no matter what.
Yeah.
They build a shape family and they pull it together, and there's a simplicity. I mean, there's 4 primary colors, there's a number of shapes, and no matter which way they pull them together, you know it's Google. So if we take something like that, one of the strongest brands in the world, it's built on foundations of simplicity. It's like Nike, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
You could either only ever see the ident in the Nike tick, or you hear let's do it. And there's such a simplicity to the way it's crafted, but I can connect to it that's what I think makes a really great brand stand out. And I think then to the second part, therefore, what makes a weak brand is where they try and build complexity in that. And all of a sudden, you're not clear what to think, feel, do, because you think, feel 40 things. And therefore, the problem is you're not clear on the one thing you're supposed to do. And so for a great hotel brand, I think, okay, I need to stay in Amsterdam. I want to stay at a hotel that has good eco policies and aligns with how I feel about staying in hotels. I want to feel like they're connecting with me, like they're using my data appropriately, that they're speaking to me in a simplistic way. And then, of course, the do is they want me to go ahead and book and then rebook. So that was a super long answer to just say the word simplicity, but the answer is simplicity.
Well, I fully agree on that. And when I was talking with Dado, I also discovered it's in our veins. Like, we are working at a tech company, and it's always about how to make things in UX and UI very easy and straightforward. But he said, like, UX is such a big part of being a strong brand for us. And I actually want to listen to one of the next sections or answers from Dado, and that's, let me see, how do you differentiate?
Yeah. In that sense, what's really important, strategizing, like there is like no quick win, let's put it like this. So you really need to sit and work on your brand decks, on your style guides, but strategizing is really the thing over there. So taking that extra effort to make it all happen and look into it and really make it powerful, I think that is what very important over there.
Yeah, so he's just saying, indeed, that simplicity, and yeah, it's more than just colors. Just go back to the strategy and really think about, who do you want to target? What is your goal? And simplify that. And then it's also very easy to build your brand around it. But he said you definitely see the weaker from the stronger brands. You just know that they have a strategy around it, behind it. So that was Dado's input.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, there's two things there. If if we think back to like ITB Berlin, right? And our good friends at Muse, that for me is how to harness brand in a live experience, right? Because it didn't matter. Everybody was talking about it. Okay, it was pink boiler suits and the funkiest stand you've ever seen and fortune cookies, but I still irritate my team talking about those fortune cookies. Yeah. They're like, what do you want to do with a brand experience? And I'm like, I want to talk about Muse fortune cookies. And I think that's when we talk about having a powerful brand. But the other thing when he was just speaking is saying there's no quick win with brand. And I mean, it's super frustrating, right? Because you spend all of this time on this brand refresh and building this incredible brand story and this brand presence. And then it's kind of like, okay, but how are we going to measure this? And where are we seeing success with the brand? And it's so hard sometimes to try and explain that brand is a foundation. That is the absolute foundation of how we build the house. And then we put all of the bricks on top of that. But if we don't have a strong brand in the foundation, the house is going to fall down anyway. Yeah. So it's definitely one of the harder ones from a quick win perspective. It's not that, but it is definitely the one that I think pays off time and time again, because people start to understand that you're going to show up in a certain way. And that's kind of how that kind of brand affinity works.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the most frustrating thing about branding, that you cannot measure it right away. But then we had those sessions with our brands, actually, where we had a section for branding and how to optimize your marketing channels. And there was a hotelier from Citizen M, and they were saying, multiple brands actually did it, that they had per year a budget just to spend on branding. It's a branding campaign. We don't need to get direct bookings from it. It's like purely brand. And one season they decided to skip that and just, like you're talking about, retransfer advertising, just an experience kind of advertising. They stopped it and they directly saw bookings dropping over time. And that was so nice to hear, because you never really get that data or that insight, like what is the impact, but they saw it right away.
And I think the great thing about that, right, is for Citizen M particularly, is they have harnessed the power of brand, to your point, right? And the reason that they do it so well is that they have this low fear barrier in terms of testing things out in the market. Yeah. And they will publicly try something out and test a new brand or play in the metaverse or do something and say, hey, we're testing the brand. We're going to see what happens. And there's such a beautiful honesty to the way that Citizen M present the brand that I think people are like, have you seen this thing Citizen M are testing? Have you seen that they're trying this and now they're not trying that? And who cares if it works, because they're out there, they're having a go and they're putting the brand at the front of it. So they are a great example from a power of brand perspective for hotels.
For sure. So if you don't know them, which the chance is very unlikely, but do have a look at their brand and also what they do in terms of brand campaigns, because it's really, really inspiring and it has a great effect on their brand and their long-time loyal guests. I hope that. No, I still have a question I want to cover. I actually want to talk about the impact of a strong brand. So I'm just going to ignore the hotel. Well, if the boss is okay with it, what is the importance of a strong brand for hotels?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, because the nice thing here is that we can also finish on revenue, right? Because sometimes with marketing and brand, like we started at the beginning, people are like, that's nice, but does it bring me money? And a strong brand for a hotel absolutely drives additional revenue. So when we think about the importance of direct booking, and I love that Dado is talking about the power of the website and how they're driving digital traffic, and the focus there is a strong brand in the first place is more likely to allow us to drive direct traffic, right? Because we talk a lot about direct bookings and that being a better channel than OTAs, particularly because of cost. But the reality is that to get people to find you direct in the first place anyway, you would have had to have had a strong brand presence in market. Because what I will do is I will Google hotels in Amsterdam, but if I need to know your hotel, I already need the brand awareness. So we start to see it pay off there. But where I really think we start to see it driving revenue is in the repeat guest. So we know that the cheapest guest to convert is the returning guest. And that's where brand comes into it. By the point I check out, I should already be in love. I should already understand and love your brand and know that when I'm coming back to Amsterdam, I'm staying in your hotel. And so if you can drive me to book direct again through loyalty programs, through retargeting, through discounts and offers, whatever it may be, by getting me in your continuous cycle of booking, that is the cheapest way to continue acquiring me as a guest. And that is fundamentally underpinned by good brand.
Amen to that. Yeah, I fully agree on that. And that is also something that Dado said as well. He's working now at a strong brand, and because of that, the costs are lower in terms of getting those guests in. But maybe for the guests who are listening and they are in marketing teams of hotels, maybe you wonder, but where do you spend your budget then? If you have a strong brand, how does it look like? And I'm gonna listen to a section.
Well, for us, it's not like fixed. It can be that some groups, there's lots of money going towards advertising, which could be the case easily. I had it in my previous work experiences. We really spend a lot of time on and effort and money on optimizing mainly websites. Why? Because a great search engine marketing starts with your website, right? So we really spend a lot of time and energy on new technologies, all which can bring us actually organic traffic, right? Because organic is still for free, and the return of investments over there are great. So for us, the biggest investments are always on the website, and then everything around it. So it can be from the pop-ups, it can be emails towards the website, and of course the Google ads, or like Bing ads or any kind of PPC advertising is there mainly to reinforce the website, but not like mainly leading the revenue coming in, right? So that is, I think, the difference between us and the others.
So that is some insight from Dado for the hotels that want to build a strong brand and wonder how they're going to spend their money afterwards.
I like it.
Yeah, me too. We're coming to an end of the main session, and that is recommendations. What are quick wins? What can we share with the audience?
Yeah, sure. So this is not what the audience want to hear at all, but brand is not a quick win. But what I definitely encourage you to do if you're exploring your brand positioning is to strip it back down to absolute basics. I am a massive fan of the white piece of paper and a pen model for starting with brand redesign. You can't do it on a screen. You can't do it in a small box of people. You need to sit down and say, what does our brand stand for? And then you need to build up from there. So I think that's really important. But to Dado's point as well, to keep it simple, why would you not be investing in digital in 2023?
Yeah.
People aren't coming to find you on a trade floor to book a hotel room. They aren't calling you up anymore to book a hotel room. They're online. So if your audience is online, your brand needs to show up online. So I think that making sure, and I think there are very few properties now that don't have a well-developed digital team. But that is absolutely where my focus would go, into how to bring the brand to life online, which is something people have still struggled with. We've known how to do it in the live experience, but bringing it digital has really accelerated. And so that would be where I would start.
Yeah. And if I can add something to that, I would definitely start there and then repeat till people get sick of it.
For sure.
Be super consistent and repeat over and over again. The time is up, I think, for the main session. Thank you. So we actually have some time dedicated to do a shameless plug in this podcast. So Hannah, do you have a shameless plug?
Well, I wouldn't be the director of marketing at Duetto if I didn't have a mini shameless plug. So for anybody who doesn't know, although thanks to our strong branding, I'm really hoping you do, Duetto is the #1 revenue management system, according to Hotel Tech Report, for the second year in the row. And I just want to tell you a couple of things as to why we continue to win #1 RMS. The first, of course, is ROI and additional revenue. You'll have noticed in our brand refresh the greater chevron. It's not just because we think we're greater, it's because we're driving greater revenue for our customers. So one is revenue. The second is our speed of deployment and our integrations, driving operational efficiency, which we know as being the first in-market integration with Oaky for an RMS last year, is something that we're incredibly proud of. And then the last one, which is what really excites me as a brand marketer, is our people. We are consistently voted number one RMS over and over again for our customer service and our support team, which are just world class. So if you are not running on Duetto, now is the time to go and check us out at duettocloud.com.
That was a very good plug. And we're also super proud of our integration, our customers as well. It's for the ones who are listening who don't know what it means. It means you can dynamically sell your upsells based on the rate codes that we get from Duetto. You don't need to do anything. We'll do the work for you. If I may also do a shameless plug, we are talking about branding here, and for the customers that are listening, a few months ago, we did a branding release with some more customization. So if you have not customized your Oaky with new buttons and fonts and background colors, please check it out and customize Oaky to the brand of your hotel even more. Well, that's it. I want to thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Oh, thanks. I'm really just here for the sandwiches afterwards, but I've had a lot of fun. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, maybe that is also a shameless plug. I will do that as well. There's a sandwich place in Amsterdam called 00, which has amazing sandwiches. And that was actually the whole reason why we got you here, right?
Basically, it's the reason I came.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.